The Pentagon has officially deployed the USS Gerald R. Carrier Strike Group to the Caribbean. Officially, the mission is for anti-narcotics and regional security operations. But analysts believe the real reason is strategic, to send a message to Russia and Venezuela.
Venezuela is on maximum alert. We will not bow to imperial provocations. Within days, 200,000 troops are mobilized under Plan Independencia 200.
From Moscow, the Kremlin calls it a legitimate act of defense.
The Caribbean is no longer a tourist paradise. It's the stage for a new superpower chess match.
Imagine this. The turquoise waters of the Caribbean calm, warm, and peaceful, suddenly disrupted by a shadow of steel. The USS Gerald R. Ford, America's most powerful aircraft carrier, now sails dangerously close to Venezuelan waters. The world watches in silence. Is this just another military exercise, or the beginning of a new showdown between Washington and Moscow this time, right in America's own backyard? November 2025. The Pentagon officially announces the deployment of the USS Gerald R. Ford to the Caribbean. The reason? Anti-narcotics and regional security operations. But wait, why send an entire carrier strike group for a narcotics mission? Analysts believe the real reason is strategic, to send a message to Russia and Venezuela. In Caracas, President Nicolás Maduro responds with fury. Venezuela is on maximum alert. We will not bow to imperial provocations. Within days, 200,000 troops are mobilized under a nationwide exercise plan Independencia 200. From Moscow, the Kremlin echoes support for its Latin American ally, calling it a legitimate act of defense. And just like that, the Caribbean is no longer a tourist paradise. It's the stage for a new superpower chess match.
And ready to go at a moment's notice.
Here's what most people don't realize. Washington's move is deeply rooted in the Monroe Doctrine, the old U.S. principle that declared Latin America its exclusive sphere of influence. So when Moscow expands its military footprint in Venezuela, it's seen in Washington as crossing a bright red line. On May 7, 2025, Moscow and Caracas signed a new military cooperation agreement. Russia pledged to deliver Panzer S-1 and Buck M2E air defense systems, Kh-35 anti-ship missiles, and deploy military advisors to train Venezuelan forces. Some reports even suggest that Russia could send the new Oreshnik hypersonic missiles, though not officially confirmed. So the big question is Moscow replaying history, a modern echo of the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis? Inside Venezuela, Maduro used the crisis to rally his base and rebuild his image. He declared, "The empire threatens us, therefore we unite." The result? His approval ratings jumped, opposition weakened, and public attention shifted from the economic collapse to national defense. Yet, military experts note that Venezuela's combat readiness remains limited. Most of its hardware depends on Russian parts and fuel supplies restricted by sanctions. Still, politically, it's a masterstroke turning weakness into defiance. We are not the target, we are the resistance. America's deeper concern is energy security. Vital oil shipping routes from Latin America pass through the Caribbean. If Russia fortifies Venezuela, it could threaten U.S. supply lines and military bases in Puerto Rico, Curazao. That's why the USS Gerald R. Ford isn't just a show of power, it's a deterrent. A floating signal, don't cross this line. However, there's something most don't see. According to open-source intelligence, Russian Il-38 Navy spy planes have begun tracking U.S. movements from La Orquilla Air Base in Venezuela. The signs of a new Cold War proxy conflict are now visible above the Caribbean Sea. Tension hits its peak. Venezuelan patrol ships lock their targeting radars on U.S. destroyers. In Washington, The National Security Council meets in emergency session. It feels eerily familiar, just like 1962. But this time, the war isn't in black and white photos. It's live streamed in real time to millions across the world. The modern battlefield isn't just made of steel, it's made of signals, satellites, and perception. And here's the most shocking part. Behind the scenes, Russia and Venezuela are finalizing a classified arms contract, including strike drones, anti-stealth radar systems, and a joint satellite communications hub in Maracay. In essence, they're building an early warning defense network aimed directly at U.S. naval activity in the Caribbean. For the first time in decades, America is feeling pressure right on its southern horizon. History repeats itself, only this time, the stakes are higher. 63 years after the Cuban Missile Crisis, the world once again finds itself on edge. But not in Havana and Caracas. The United States is defending its backyard. Russia is exploiting the opportunity to challenge U.S. dominance. And Venezuela stands in the middle, both a pawn and a symbol of resistance. So the question now is this just a temporary show of force? Or the beginning of a new geopolitical era that could reshape Latin America for decades to come? Because imagine this. If Russia establishes a permanent base in the Caribbean, would the U.S. still control the Western Hemisphere? Or would the balance of power finally tilt southward? This is the Crisis in the Caribbean 2.0. And trust me, this is only the beginning of something much bigger.